I have had the privilege of associating with a diverse set of organizations in a long career of over 37 years. An interesting part is, in most organizations, the pain points are similar. Revenue plateauing, margin pressures, operating income coming under pressure are some of these challenges. In addition, a constantly evolving and changing market also throws up certain dynamics that organizations need to grapple with as they move. Let's look at a different dimension of businesses. This dimension refers to the organization structure, the dynamics that then relate with such a structure, the resource requirement as to whether they are being optimally deployed, and the third part is as to whether accountability and responsibility at appropriate levels converge to the relevant points. Therefore, to summarize, we identified revenue challenges, shrinkage or challenges related to gross margins, operational income issues, organization structure, internal resource deployment, accountability and responsibility as some of the key areas that organizations need to constantly revisit and address. The market. In a constantly evolving and changing market, are we as an organization geared to align and benefit out of? For example, the KSA has taken on an ambitious objective of wanting to optimize energy utilization. There are opportunities here. If you take up the UAE, they've just announced dilution of agency laws. This takes away the protection barriers that most organizations enjoyed and experienced till now. Is there an opportunity in it, or is it a threat? The Indian dairy sector is growing exponentially. Are we positioned to try and exploit and benefit of the same? Or take the sort of connectivity that has set in over the past few years amongst geographies, amongst economies, and consequently amongst organizations across these diverse geographies? Are we in a position to try and benefit of the same? Governance. This is an increasingly important area of focus for everyone. All organizations need to comply with the increasingly stringent requirements that get imposed for good reasons. Are we as an organization internally geared to try and comply with such requirements? Let's now touch upon an external resource that organizations increasingly go for to try and address some of their internal challenges. That is consultants. There is a constant thought in organizations as to whether the assignment that is then doled out, the cost that is incurred, the feedback that comes in, and the ability to implement that feedback are possible for the organization and then benefit of the same. At the end of it all, we need to ask ourselves this question. Are we creating value, and are we creating consistent value in our organizations? Value creation has four fundamentals. One is consistency in growth of organizations. Second is relevance of organizations in a changing environment. Third, is the organization institutionalized in terms of its structure? And fourth, does it have sound governance to try and mitigate risks and be in a position to then look into the crystal ball and appropriately restructure itself to meet the requirements of the future? Summarizing, therefore, what is required of organizations is to have a comprehensive review of its operations, to try and understand as to what are the key aspects that need to be then looked at and addressed, and then put together a cogent program to systematically address the same, would enable organizations to work towards growing their internal value. This is where we come in. We are able to then facilitate such an intervention. Not only that, we are also able to work alongside the organization and enable it to successfully implement such requirements and measure the results and performance. I will share with you an example of one such intervention, which would reinforce the last point I made. This particular chart takes a period of 4 years, and if you look at the top line in these 4 years, it's grown from an indexed 100 to 221. That is, it's doubled its top line. The gross margin, however, has declined from 31% to 27% in the set period. Interestingly, if you look at the operating income, that has stabilized and firmed up from 23 to 24%. Now, what exactly has happened with that? I had referred to institutionalizing organization structure, ensuring accountability and responsibility converging. Both these points were addressed in this particular organization, and that's what enabled this firming up of operating income. What did we do? We identified resources and costs that sit below the gross margin and therefore are treated as common overheads, and then moved them above the gross and made them increasingly accountable for delivering not only the revenue but also the margin levels. And this translated into the operating income, therefore then growing. This also had a positive bearing on the net earning, which you will notice went up sharply from 12% to 18%. Not only this, there are all the metrics that go to determine value that then automatically improve. For example, the turnover to asset were moved up from 1.3 to almost 2. EBITDA to short-term debt, the ability of an organization to service its short-term debt was vastly improved from 0.5 to 1.2. The working capital came down very sharply from 83 days to 48 days. So one doesn't have to probably go about micromanaging an organization to try and achieve all this. You focus on strategic areas that have been identified, that have been agreed to as areas of intervention, and then put in place a program that enable these to then be addressed positively. And the results would then be commensurate. There are other examples that one can share, but I thought I'll leave it here at this point in time, and then also share with you our credentials. We operate out of Dubai. We also operate out of India. And we then provide you the leads. Should this interest you, do get in touch with us, and we're happy to then engage and have an initial chat with you. Thank you so much.